Hello and welcome to episode 23 of the Live Wire Game Show. The second one of the week! Welcome. This week we're gonna do our review of 2020 release, The Last of Us Part 2. It's just over a year since the game launched and it's the 1 year anniversary, and we decided let's review it 1 year after release. Before we get into it, as usual, we'll have our little weekly catch-up that isn't going to take an hour this week. Dylan wasn't here Monday, so he gets thrown in the deep end first. Dylan, what have you been up to? How have you been?
I haven't been playing Final Fantasy, so that just exempts me.
Motherfucker.
I'm waiting for it to go on sale, like you said, Stephen, okay? I have my watch list.
Fine.
I'm watching it.
It's on sale on Amazon right now.
Is that a sub €15 sale?
No.
Because that's all they're getting from me. What have I been doing this week? I've been playing my variety as usual. Finished off the Sea of Thieves Tall Tales. 100%ed all 5 of them, 6 of them, 5 of them.
Nice.
Done that. Played some more Outer Worlds. Played PS5 for the first time. Well, first time on my own. Took about 3 days to download Destiny, so I started playing Ratchet and Clank. I don't like Ratchet and Clank.
That's what we're reviewing next week.
I don't know what it is. It's just it looks amazing. It plays amazing. The transition from scene to cutscene is fucking seamless. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Taking like 12 seconds to launch the game is so nice. I just wish it was a game that I wanted to play.
Do you know what's funny, right? You're saying the exact same things as Tick Boy said in the layman review of the game. He was like, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is objectively a great game. It looks great, it plays great, it's amazing, the gunplay is great, the story is great. He's like, it's just not for me.
Yeah, can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, and that's fair. And he said the same thing. He's like, I just didn't enjoy it. Like, it was great. I had a great time, but at the same time, I didn't enjoy it. It was weird.
Like, I'm genuinely tempted to trade it in this week against.
I think if you want to do it, like,
yeah,
you'll get
Yeah,
you'll probably get 60-70 quid for it easy.
just to trade it in against the likes of Demon Souls or Godfall, which are 2 games that I do want to play on it.
Or
Don't do it against Godfall.
Or Immortal Phoenix Rising, that's 30 quid.
I'm already like balls deep into it on Switch. I don't want to restart. Godfall, Stephen, I'm excited to play that, man. I can't
No,
wait.
that will be free on the PlayStation Plus soon.
Yeah.
Do not trade it in against
Okay.
that. Also, more
You heard it here first. August game.
You
of the
get-
month is
Deal.
Godfall.
You'll get 45 quid for Ratchet and Clank. If you give it to me, I get an extra 10% on top of that.
Okay, I'm gonna check with Kathy to see if she wants to play it. If she doesn't want to play it, I will probably trade it in because, yeah, it's like I said, it really emphasizes the controller and just like the adaptive triggers and haptic feedback and shit like that. And it's great. It feels good, and it's the sound coming through and the effects. It's really really nice. But I don't know, just
It's not grabbing me.
Now, the one thing I
hasn't
will-
groped me. And I've
the
sat
one thing I
down
will
for-
say is that it's a short enough game that you could sit down at 7 p.m. in the evening and just smash through it to the end of it and then trade it in.
I'm at the part where you are Rivet and you just looked into Clank's brain. I'm trying to be vague. Yeah.
You're just that.
yeah.
That's with the Morts, isn't it?
Just after that.
Yeah. So you're about, I'd say, about 40% through the game.
Okay, right. I might finish it. I might
Like, you
force
could
myself.
smash out the story and not get too bogged down in getting the weapons and getting all that, and just literally
Yeah.
just smash through the story. Because
And that's another thing. Like the weapons are great. Like it's just that whole like, just fun to shoot and throw the grenades and throw the fucking fungi mushroom or whatever to be your aid and stuff like that. But I don't know. I haven't enjoyed it. So I've been playing Destiny with the FOV slider and fucking 60 frames and turned on the 120 for Crucible or whatever thing that I was offering. So haven't touched Crucible yet, but done the typical PC thing.
Make
Went
sure
into
you plug
settings,
it
put
into your
everything
PC
up all
for
the way. Huh?
make sure if you're trying out the 120 hertz frames, make sure you plug it into your PC monitor for that, just to make the most of it.
Yeah.
Because most TVs aren't 120 frames.
That's true, actually. But yeah. So I haven't really jumped into a story-driven game yet that I'm really enjoying on PlayStation, but hope to change that next week. Other than that, I've just been playing some Apex. The new 9.1 expansion came out for WoW. Played that for a couple of hours yesterday. It's just basically like a seasonal expansion. It's season 2. Yeah, other than that, I'm trying to think. Just the usual. Done my reading, watch some TV. I restart Community again, so I'm 2 seasons in.
Was that
Just
because
great
I
background.
mentioned it the other night? Or had you
No, it
already
was
started?
because me and Kathy are watching
Yeah.
How I Met Your Mother, and we're only 5 seasons in, but I can't watch episodes without her, and she's on nights, so it's kind of like
Fair
I just
enough.
want that half an hour fucking stupid shit in the background. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's pretty much been me.
Stephen, what have you been up to? How are you being? What you been doing? Beat you to it.
I've been playing Returnal.
I've been
Never
That's all I've
returning.
done this week is watch him play Returnal.
Don't. He
No, do.
man,
I'm sorry. He's gonna come in now in a second and say, "I'm really bad at the game. I'm really struggling." I'm not. He's lying.
I'm not.
He has been smashing this fucking game. Obviously, you're struggling because
Until
you're near
now.
the end of the game now. But I've been watching it going. That was really impressive what you just did. Sorry, I've completely hijacked your about you.
No, you're
so.
fine. No, it's fine. I'll take the compliment. No, to be fair now,
Twitch.tv, Dr.
was-
Average Gaming.
I was only saying to Dill before you jumped in that I've been reading people who are struggling, like they spent like 40 hours only to get to the first boss and maybe kill him, and other people then who like complete it in 12 hours or less. And I think all of this really comes down to like, one, there is a skill gap, a skill barrier there, but I don't think it gets much harder. I think basically if you can master it in the first part of the game, it doesn't get too much more skillful. The problem is the RNG. And what I'm finding now is in Biome 5, where I am, the RNG is just so restrictive that there's a particular enemy type. There's like a flying robot that shoots a burst of missiles. And if one burst hits you, you're down to red. And then if anything else gets you, i.e. one of the 9 other things that fucking spawned in, you're gone. So if you don't get a weapon that can deal with them really quickly, it doesn't matter what you do. There's only so many dodges you can do because you have a cooldown, and there's only so much jumping you can do before something picks you out. And what I'm finding now is, even though I have the skill to kill the bosses relatively quickly, I'm getting screwed with some RNG.
Do you know what I think may have happened with you as well, though, is that you smashed out biomes 1 to 4. Like,
Yeah.
so your weapon proficiency, I think it is. So if someone has spent, say, 10 hours getting through biomes 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, they're naturally going to be at a higher weapon proficiency than you are, because I think that's how the game works. I could be completely wrong.
That resets.
Oh, that resets every time, does it? Okay,
every time you
never mind.
die, your weapon. So what I have noticed though is when you complete Biome 3 and go to Biome 4, your weapon proficiency starts at 15. So you start at 1. So now, and what I also noticed is when you go to yeah. So when you go to another biome, so when I went from Biome 4 to 5, there's a little blue proficiency thing, so that brings me up to 19. So when I'm speed running through 4 to get to 5, I'm not getting my proficiency up, but there's a little thing there to kick you up a bit, so that's fine. It's just not getting the weapons that I enjoy using. I keep getting the fucking shotgun. I might end up using that because I think maybe getting up close and killing them, hopefully in one hit, will be easier. But the part that sold it to me, like, and it's the same with you, Boss Fight 4.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. If we were doing a boss list again, that is probably my all-time favorite boss in any game. And it's, so I'll stay spoiler free, but the part that does it for me is that there's this melody that plays throughout the Biome 4, and you kind of faintly hear it, but I never really picked up on it. And then when you get to the tower where you're ascending to fight the boss, the melody plays, and it's just like na 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 na. You're like, oh, that's
And it gets
hauntingly
louder
beautiful.
and louder and louder.
until you get to the boss, and the boss is this pianist playing is like giant organ made out of trees and vines. And I've been rewatching my playthrough because I just want to hear the music, and I've noticed things like the vines from the tree are attached to the boss, and each phase where you kill him, he loses that connection. And in the final phase, he comes out of it completely, and that's why he's in the middle. And then I went back to watch it again. I was like, that song is really familiar. And then I watched my playthrough of number 3 again, and at the end of 3, Kev, I think you saw 3, it shows you what happens. And there's a song that plays on piano.
It's the same
And
song.
I don't think I played this. I don't think I streamed this part where it happens, and I'll say it to you afterwards, Kev. But the name of that song is called out very explicitly as the lyrics. And I was like, holy shit, is that song? And I went to listen to that song in real life. And it's a piece of that song that they've changed. It's a specific harmonizing part of that song that they've changed with an organ, and it's fucking unreal. And I'm assuming that song has a deeper meaning to the story, and I can't wait to find out what it is. I love Returnal the way it is at the moment. I love all the shit that's going on. I want to know what's happened to the alien race. I assume I won't. I want to know what's happening with Celine's story. She's being chased by some fucking astronaut. There's some time shit going on. I love it.
It's a Christopher. If Christopher Nolan made a game, it'd be Returnal.
Now, why can't it be like that without being a fucking what's it called, roguelike?
But to be fair now, right? So it's the first roguelite I've ever played. Now, I don't, as I always say, I don't think I'm that skilled of a gamer. But in saying that, I think if you're decently proficient at shooting and dodging, like if you're not a person who struggles with multiple inputs, you can get through this game. The thing that will screw you is not the difficulty, it's the RNG. And yes, it was the first time where I actually had to walk away after a couple of hours ago. Okay, I'm getting frustrated now because I'm just not getting good runs. Not that I'm not good enough. It's I know I can combat these, and I'm just getting caught out with bad weapons, or I'm not getting health drops when I need them, so I can't, because you can't recover your health unless you get a drop. So it's very hard when you get screwed in the first room, something hits you, and you don't recover your health, and you're trying to run through the rest of it. So like, it's not I wouldn't say it's an overly difficult game, and I don't think you need to be skilled to master it, but you will frustrate you because of the RNG. But it's so worth to play. I've paid €40 for it because I have a US account. It is worth all that money. I would have paid 70 quid for it if I had known.
I'm tempted.
As much.
To be honest, I'm very, very tempted to buy it over the weekend just from watching you play it. Because I saw on that fourth boss when he's playing the organ, the whatever you want to call it, the beams that come at you, that he shoots at you, come out of the organs. So the different colored ones come from different. It was insane watching it.
There was a part in it as well that because he has this purple beam that like shoots across the room, and the first time I missed it, but the second time I think I just copped it the last second. But the way it looks in the video is I use the invincibility frames, so I just do this like little hop as it goes past him. Like, that looks so skillful, but I know at the time I just freaked out. I was like, shit jump, shit jump, shit jump. But it looks so cool, and just how quick and responsive the game is. Like, that game could have died if it had any sort of input lag or unresponsiveness, and it's just so good. I can't stop gushing about it. I really love it. Even though it's annoying me at the moment, I really love it.
Like, is it a case of if you get fucked up with RNG, you're better off like just throwing that level, and then trying to restart it again and hope that it changes?
Yeah. Well, not with the RNG. There's sometimes where I had 1 or 2 rooms yesterday where I go in and something just catches me as soon as I walk in, or I do something stupid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the first room. There's no fucking way I'm gonna get through the rest of this.
Continue on.
So I throw it then, and that's fine because each death gives you more insight into what's going on in, like, I suppose I'll call it like her flashbacks. Okay. Is what it looks like. So you get a little bit more story. So it's not like, okay, you get punished, but you get something in return as well. You're like, okay, I'm getting a little bit more of the story here, so that's fine. So yeah, it's so good. It's if you've even the slightest interest in playing it, people
I
should get it.
do
It's not
because I
as-
like the
it's-
setting. Like it's very kind of
Yeah, but when it was
Alien
revealed,
Prometheus
you were
kind
like,
of-
"Damn, I'm on that."
yeah. It
Yeah, I
looks
remember that.
so well, but then
Just
it was
funny.
found out it was a roguelike, and I was
It's not like, because this is a AAA roguelite, I don't think it's probably as difficult as other ones may be, like the real hardcore indie developers who go into that.
Hades and shit
But
like
in-
that.
Yeah, but in saying that, it does fuck you up, and it, like, the walls that you hit aren't necessarily based on the skill ceiling. It's just RNG, and it will either fuck you raw with a dildo or put on the lube the next time. It's one or the other. It's never.
That's
never
an
the happy
analogy.
between. There you go. Put that in the fucking the link in the description below.
IGN 9 out of 10.
Too much lube.
Not enough
So
water.
that's consumed the majority of your week then.
That has consumed the majority of my week. Although I have a fucking job interview tomorrow, so all today was prep.
You just gotta go into the job like, here's my fourth boss fight from Returnal. Give me the job.
Yeah. Boom.
I can get fucked over and over and over, and I'm so resilient that I will go again.
Yeah.
I
Tell
mean,
us about the time you
that's not,
adapted to a typical situation.
Yeah.
that's not
Have
a
you seen
bad
my
one.
fourth boss fight?
Like, depending on where you're working and who's interviewing you, tell us about a time that you had to overcome a struggle. I completed Dark Souls.
Level 1 run on Dark
Level
Souls.
run. I had a friend who went to an interview and they literally asked him like, Streamlabs has stopped recording just this second.
Yep.
Streamlabs is now recording again. And back to my story. I had a friend who did an interview and they asked him, "Oh, what are your weaknesses?" And he's like, he looked the interviewer dead straight in the eye and said, "Kryptonite." He got the job.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a ballsy move.
it was ballsy move, Cotton. Anyway,
What have you been up to, Kev, this week?
this week I haven't played anything since the Final Fantasy podcast on Monday. It's like over the weekend I finished off Ratchet and Clank, which, as a counterpoint to him, I completely loved it. Like, I get what he said. I completely understand how you might not enjoy it, because it is, at the end of the day, it is a game made for a younger audience. Like, it's straight. It is. Obviously, when it first came out, it was aimed at a younger audience, and those people have grown up and kept playing it, so it has matured a bit with them, but it is still a game aimed at a younger audience, so I can understand why people might not vibe with it, while also looking at it and going, yeah, like, everything's great, it's just not for me. So I finished off my 100% of that. It was literally just did the second playthrough on New Game Plus to get all the weapons to max level, because I thought there was another max level again in the next New Game Plus. There wasn't, so I didn't have to play it anymore. Monday night we did the Final Fantasy intermission stuff, and Tuesday I edited that while doing a Vault of Glass raid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, posted that, but apart from that...
That was why you were AFK all the
Yeah,
time.
I was okay the whole time, just posting, doing the podcast stuff.
That's why we didn't get them done till 10 o'clock that night.
But apart from that, I had a football match yesterday, so I wasn't gaming. I did a couple of GMs last night, actually, Grandmasters in Destiny, because hung juries in the loop. But apart from that, it's been a bit... This is my weekend work now. This is my busy weekend work. So I have a busy week, and then next week's a bit quieter again. So I didn't do a whole lot of gaming stuff this week. And then today was getting ready for this. So I've had a very boring week that no one really needs to hear about. So just
You did hang out with me and Twitch chat, so
I did. I was watching you stream it a couple of times
while
this
you were
week.
working.
Yeah, I was working away in the background. Had your stream on, watching it. It's been a quiet week, gaming wise for me. So there's not really anything to talk about, I don't think. No. I wish I had more to talk about in terms of gaming than I do, but I don't. So, moving on, I guess.
Yeah.
Hopefully that doesn't cut out on me again. It shouldn't do. So shall we move on to our Last of Us discussion / review /
Stephen
whatever
played
you
the
want to
game
call it.
in the last 10 hours. You just beeline through it, didn't
Don't need to.
you? My
Played it 2
opinion
years
is
ago.
unchanged.
Right, so The Last of Us. In case you don't know what The Last of Us is, The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2, they are third-person, over-the-shoulder action-adventure games by the PlayStation publisher Naughty Dog. They're also responsible for the likes of Crash Bandicoot back in the day and the Uncharted series. So they make high-quality AAA games. The Last of Us, it's a linear story with a couple of small open world chapters that aren't really open world, but we'll get onto that. But yeah, it's what it is. It's a narrative driven third person action adventure puzzle.
Very
game.
narrative driven.
It's you buy a Naughty Dog game, you know what you're getting.
You buy a HBO series.
Yeah. So Last of Us Part 1, which is what we call it, came out in 2013, I'm going to say. I think it was 2013 anyway. To pretty critical acclaim. It was one of the highest rated games ever released, whether you liked it or not. It won lots of awards, and Part 2, the sequel, came out last year, in June last year, and was simultaneously one of the most divisive, but also the most successful games of all time. If there was an awards show for games on last year, The Last of Us Part 2 won most of what was there. Yeah, it won most of what was there. So
Xbox Game of the Year last
Xbox Game of the Year last of us. But yeah, like it's very divisive, which this show is gonna, like, there's three of us here. The three of us are gonna have very different opinions. One of us, I know, loved the game. One of us refuses to play it, but watched it and knows the story, and just will not play it because they hated the first one. And then I'm kind of in the middle where I love the first one, and I have critical thoughts about the second one. But we'll get to that. We'll split it up. We'll start with I wouldn't call it the worst part, but the most critical part of a Naughty Dog game, and that's the gameplay. So, general gameplay. Sorry?
Shite.
And that is Stephen's answer for every subtopic for
everything. Stephen's just gonna
See you later.
he's gonna be like Father Jack, just shouting out expletives every so often. Yes.
That'll be an ecumenical matter.
Anyway, yeah. So look, you buy a Naughty Dog game, you know what you're getting. If you're buying a Naughty Dog game for groundbreaking gameplay, you're not gonna get it. What Naughty Dog games generally provide, it's strong narrative-driven story. It's both probably in cutscenes and out, and in general moment-to-moment gameplay. You get generation-defining graphics. I think both games released towards the end of their console generation cycle. So you get generation-defining graphics. But what you get is objectively weak gunplay and very average gunplay fighting mechanics. But to critique a Naughty Dog game on its gunplay, I think that's a bit short-sighted, in my opinion, because you know what you're getting when you buy that game. You're not buying it for Call of Duty level gunplay. You're buying it for the story, and what they try to deliver is a story. To critique it, they critique the gunplay, but to say it's shit because of the gunplay, I think is unfair. Because they have been releasing games like that for forever, since the first Uncharted game. But I know Stephen is itching to come in here.
Yep.
But what I will say about The Last of Us 2 before you come in, I think the gunplay is objectively weak in both. It's slightly better in the sequel, but melee combat in the sequel is very satisfying to me anyway, because it feels quite... And this is without haptic feedback, by the way. It feels quite visceral when you're golf clubbing a zombie in the head. Oh, yeah. Joel. Poor Joel. Sorry, Stephen. Go on, Stephen. I can see you itching yourself. Go on.
No, I completely disagree with that point, because I know when you buy a Naughty Dog game, you're buying it for the story. Fair enough. But if the vehicle that propels you through the narrative is so poor, we cannot use that as an acceptable excuse to say, oh, but I'm only here for the story. Like if you go to the cinema to watch a film and they make you sit on non-lubed dildos, you go, but I only came here for the story, mate. I don't care what they make me sit on. Like, bullshit. If the system they use to drive you through the narrative is poor and dated for the time, like,
It is
I think
dated, I agree.
the Uncharted games get a pass because they came out 2004 to 2009. That type of gunplay was prolific then, and they got away with it because they were in line with everyone else. They kept that, and in 2013, when The Last of Us came out, it was outdated, it was shite. They decided in The Last of Us 2, hey, we'll keep the outdated shite because everyone said it was fine, so if it's not broken, we won't fix it. So, no, I don't think it's good to give them a pass on that because, again, games are different to any other medium because the gameplay is the medium through which we experience a story. And the gameplay is weak. They need to get fucking told, no, if you have a great story, but I can't experience it because of your poor gameplay design, then it's a poor game. Simple as that. If you buy a book and it's missing half the pages or you can't touch the paper,
You get
it's
a
a
refund
poor
on it. One thing I was
can't get a
I
refund from
agree.
Neil Druckmann, can I?
Yeah. I agree with what you're saying about poor gameplay, but most gaming media and fans are going to disagree because of what this game has clearly been very successful. So yeah, no, but they clearly disagree with you. I'm not saying I disagree with you, but most people do. Sorry, Dill, go on.
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
He's like, I can't come back after that.
Yeah,
Dill's like, I took that personally.
I see where you're both. I see both your points, and I agree with both your points because could it be better? Yes. Am I satisfied with what I got? Yes. If like, I don't know. I'm one of the few people who actually enjoys the gameplay. It's very slow. It's very very tedious at times, but like Kev was saying, the melee in the second one was great. Like it really felt like you weren't just hitting someone, and it was
That's
like
what-
meaningless. It was kind of like it leads you into an interaction with that person. It wasn't just like hit and dodge. It was like you're hitting them, and then it proceeds into a kind of a 3-part takedown kind of feel, which I loved because I never had ammo because I'd have 12 bullets, I'd miss 10, and then I'd have to melee no matter what.
No, I think
So
the gunplay is definitely weak. 100%. It's objectively on the weaker end of gunplay, especially for AAA games. I think while the combat does feel visceral, it's like when you land a punch, like you could feel that punch.
oh, you feel it, yeah.
Like the audio design was brilliant. But the critique I have of the melee combat is that they're basically glorified QuickTime events without the press X at this exact time on your screen. You do that anyway. It's like punch. Oh, they're swinging. I better dodge, and then hit them. Yeah, but
I think that complements the gameplay because it's not a game where you're all out and out fighting. You're literally hidden 90% of the time. You're traversing through this environment where
the game rewards you for
want,
playing that way.
Yeah, like you don't want to be overextended for a period of time because, like, if you get more than two or three people's attention, you're as good as dead because it's just the way the game plays. And I think if you accept that and you move on, playing it at that level, which I did, and not saying the other way is a bad way. It's however you play a game is however you play a game. But I didn't find the faults in that because I very rarely was using guns, and when I was, it was like I only have fucking 20 bullets max, if even. Like I'm prioritizing the stealth aspect of it rather than just having a gunfight, you know.
That's how I played the original. That's how I played The Last of Us 1. It was, I'm not going to use as much weapons as I can because I want to be as stealthy as possible, treat this like I'm playing Hitman or something. But in The Last of Us Part 2, I kind of just went, you know what? I just want to get through this room as quick as possible. Just blow everything away as quick as possible.
Yeah.
And speaking about blowing stuff away, I think the enemy design is very like the only enemies that you feel actively hunted by were the scars, and they're the ones who
Yes.
whistle, by the way, Stephen.
Mm.
So, and I think their design was brilliant. The whistling gave them this really terrifying aspect, and they felt like they would actively try and pincer move you on your last known position.
Very
So,
organized.
yeah. And they felt like they were very intelligent, whereas the rest of the humans in the game felt fucking like mindless idiots. They would just, you could literally walk 2 foot behind them and they wouldn't see you. It's better than the original, but they did feel a bit stupid. The other thing is there wasn't. I know it is a post-apocalyptic zombie game, and the zombies generally do take the backseat to everything else that's going on. But it would have been nice to see some more variation from the first game to the sequel. Clickers are still the most frightening ones because they make that
What
noise.
did we get? The what were they? The burst? What were they?
I just call them the supersized bloaters.
The toxic gas ones.
Yeah.
They were fucking horrible to fight, man.
I found they were very slow moving and very easy to deal with.
They were fine on their own, but you
Yeah.
always had an instance where you'd have a runner
Yeah.
or a clicker around, and that's when, if you got caught off guard fighting someone else, and that gas went off, you
I
were
think
fucking GG.
What Naughty Dog were really smart about where they placed those those whatever you want to. I don't know what they're called. I can't remember. The supersized bloaters, the ones that groan when you kill them. They were very smart about where they placed those enemies in the game, because they placed them in tight rooms, dark rooms, that made them feel more sinister than they were. I remember there was the one where you drop down to the floor. I think it was in the hotel, and it's a kind of more open plan space, and it was very easy in that one. It was one of the boss fights. It was towards the end of the game, I think it was. And it's like, you just run to one side of the room, put some shots in it. Run to the other side of the room, put more shots into it. But the ones earlier in the game, I can't remember exactly where they were, but there was 2 of them in one small space. That was a bit of a nightmare, and they were very intimidating then. But that was to do with, I think, smart placement of them in the game. And they weren't overused. They weren't just thrown in for the sake of it over and over and over. I would like to see some, I don't know, a more advanced version of a clicker maybe. Because clickers were the one in the first game. You're like, oh fuck, there's a clicker here. Oh no.
Yeah.
Whereas in this game, it's like, Ellie's got a knife anyway. They're dead.
Like, I think the enemies, or the zombies, or whatever you want to call them, they were very overshadowed by the real life aspect.
Yeah.
Like, it was more built on.
Yeah. And that's
factions.
intentional. I think that's intentional on Naughty Dog's
That's what
part.
they were
100%.
aiming for, and that's fine. But it was kind of like they were thrown in as an afterthought. It was like, oh shit, we have to put these in to make it kind of. This is what the game is about. But
like it is a post-apocalypse zombie game, but it is a unique take on it, where it's not like we're focusing on the zombies. It's, what would life be like during this going on? How would people continue their own lives during?
And this is when
this
people stopped
scenario.
watching The Walking Dead.
What would Brad
Exactly
Pitt
then.
do, basically?
But yeah, like, it was hard to grow on that because the foundations were so fucking groundbreaking. I felt when the first one came out, that it was more so just tweaking it rather than introducing a new. Like, they weren't gonna completely overhaul
No, they were never gonna.
the mechanics or the shooting or the melee combat or anything like that. But anything they did do just kind of complemented it, I felt.
But I think that's a missed opportunity in that you're playing as the next generation of people. So you've got Ellie and Abby, and there could have been an interesting change in there where
There is an interesting
You
change. She has a knife permanently that doesn't break.
Mm,
She clearly hasn't
That's-
played
that-
Breath of the Wild.
yeah.
Sorry, Steve.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's that chance of, like, you've got like fresh blood, so you could bring in a fresh take. But I think this goes back to Naughty Dog's mantra of, if it isn't broke, don't fix
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
You know, they're really good. They're really good with their stories, and they have this gameplay loop that's serviceable. So they're just gonna keep with it.
Yeah.
And that's what they did.
Yeah.
But I do think they could have benefited from a fresh gameplay loop.
The risk would have been nice because I think it kind of did fall into the anticipation of the sequel's never as good as the original. If they stray too far away from the source material, it's gonna get critiqued for not honoring that, and then if it stays too close to it, it's the exact same thing. You know,
I think
it.
with the gameplay though, I think the gameplay. I know I'm probably criticizing it more than I would the first one. I did, like the one in the first game, kind of like, the gameplay is what it is. I get a great story, so I'm fine with it. I think I have issues with the gameplay in this because I didn't like the rest of the product as well, as much of the way I enjoyed the first one. I think that's why I kind of hone in on it a bit more, because the narrative isn't as strong in this one as the first one, in my opinion.
I know when we get to there,
it's a bit further along.
Yeah.
I think we should probably go into a positive part of it next, where I think it's objectively the case is that on the level design is that the level design in Naughty Dog 2, Naughty Dog the sequel, the level. Oh, by the way, actually, just before we move on from gameplay, I wanted to say one quick thing. Actually, is that I would be interested to see how this game played on PC with a mouse and keyboard.
Yes, I think it would have been much better.
I think, because what makes it feel so sluggish is there's not really any aim assist on it, which is part of the issue, I think, which is a deliberate design choice. But if you had a mouse where you literally click, click, click on with the weapons, I think it could make the gunplay feel a hell of a lot better, because you're not relying on your analog stick. Just thought I'd mention that really, really quickly.
No, it's a good point.
It just kind of triggered with me, like when we were talking about something. I was like, this would work really well on an M&K. Anyway, level design. In my opinion, level design is the biggest improvement from 2013's Last of Us to the sequel, Last of Us Part 2. So in the first game, I thought it was very, very obvious when you were going to enter a gunfight, because of the way that the cover was set out, or the terrain was, or the obstacles. It was very obviously going to be used to hide behind in a gunfight. Whereas the sequel improved that tenfold. Like, gunfights, while scripted, felt like they were way more fluid, because the areas where you were fighting in felt more realistic. That cars weren't just in random spots just because, they're going to need a bit of cover when they get... No, it felt like real areas you were fighting through. That stuff was where it was supposed to be. So it gave the illusion, I guess, that cover was in a natural position.
Yeah, I'll jump in there and say, like, from watching it, it didn't look too gamified.
Yeah.
The level design. Yeah, like, I did notice that with the first one. Like, you walk into an area and you go, oh yeah, well, I guess I'm going to be hiding behind here for a while and probably moving to there. But from watching people like Cole play the game, you kind of see, like, you just walk into a natural environment and you just naturally, instinctively go, here's a bush I just need to hide behind because I can see someone up there. And it's not very obvious that is the cover you go for. It's not like, as you said, a car in the middle of nowhere.
And that happened a lot as well, where you'd enter a space and you'd feel like it was an exploration place or a puzzle, and then it's like, oh shit, there's an enemy looking at me. And I think the first one definitely didn't have that, because there's the first gunfight. The first fight from the first game is literally like 4 boxes in a square area, where it's like, well, I'm definitely going to be hiding behind this one, and they're definitely going to hide. Where in this one, you enter a space and you're exploring, and next of all, you hear an enemy walk past, or you get the audio notification that you've entered combat. It's like, oh shit. And that was much improved. They did a great job on the level design.
I just love, like, the linear feel. Like, I know it's an open world game to a certain aspect, but I just love that part of it. Feels like you're going from level to level, even though there's no indicating that you do, but it gives you direction without giving you direction, you know, that kind of way. If you venture off for collectibles or ammo or resources, whatever, it doesn't take you long to get back to the main path or whatever. That's probably the main thing I really enjoyed.
It is very smartly done, yeah.
Yeah, and especially in the kind of middle chunk of the game when it was getting very samey and repetitive, and you just wanted to just get from point A to point B. It was very straightforward.
Yeah, I think
And it's-
you mentioned the open world stuff there. I think was there 2 open world sections in the game or 3 open world sections? And there's
When you
the
got to
main
the
one.
theater,
Yeah.
that was one.
And then you have the main one in Seattle early on in the game where you get to Seattle first. And I thought that was one of the strongest parts of the game, where it's basically 3 or 4 different levels combined into one. And it gives you the feeling of, oh, I can do this in any order I want.
Gives
So
you
it's
choice.
open world. But it doesn't really give you a choice, but it makes you feel like it's giving you choice. You still have to do the same things, but it's like, I can do them in different orders. Like you had you had to go into the bank in Seattle, I think it was, and then you had to go into it was a government building. But you still had to do the same. You had to collect the same 3 things, but it did give an illusion of freedom in an otherwise very linear story. Which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with a linear story. There's nothing wrong with it at all.
That's subjective
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I
It's nothing wrong
love
with
the
it at
linear
all.
aspect of it,
Yeah.
and especially
Well, I don't
later
know.
on after the hotel, was it, or the hospital? Sorry,
Yeah.
when you're on the high rise kind of traversing period.
Yes. Yeah.
That whole design was fantastic.
It's where you're playing
really
as
enjoyed
Abby,
that.
isn't it? And then you fall through.
Yeah,
Oh,
Abby and
we
Len.
should have said, by the way, this is full spoilers. This is full spoilers. There is no holds barred in this. FYI.
It's a review. You knew what you were watching.
Yeah. It is full spoilers.
Yeah, just that whole it felt like new terrain that they were exploring, and yeah, it was a new feel, and just to give that perception of height was I really like that.
Yeah, I think while it is obviously it's a linear game. It's you are going from level to level, but it does give you that, I don't want to keep saying illusion, but it's an illusion of it is all one big open world, but it's not really, because you are being forced from bit to bit. You've got an entrance to a level and an exit to each level, but it does give that feeling of it's natural.
Yeah.
So yeah, the level design is excellent. Like it really is. It's fantastic. Is it the best level design we've ever seen in any game? No, but it's definitely very, very good, especially in comparison to what came before it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Anthem.
And Anthem. Right, moving on to another strong part of the game, and for me, look, it's a Naughty Dog game. It's a AAA PlayStation exclusive, so the visuals are obviously gonna be A+. The audio is excellent as well, but the visuals, like, it was the end of the PS4's life cycle, so the visuals were as strong as you're gonna get on a PlayStation 4 without it exploding in your living room. The environments are beautiful. The characters all look fantastic. Like characters in games can't get much more realistic looking, and that's to be expected from a Naughty Dog title like the Uncharted games for their time. They probably look a little bit rough now, apart from the 4th one maybe, but for their time they pushed forward visuals in gaming. Naughty Dog are famous for doing that. And this one's no exception. I think one thing to be critical of, and this is only the PS4 version, by the way, because the PS5 version has a nice shiny update. When I played it, and when it was released, it was played at 30 FPS. 30 FPS has no place in video games anymore on a next generation console. Last of Us 2 got a 60 FPS update. I did not reinstall it on my PlayStation. I intended to. I just didn't have time this week. But I'm sure 60 FPS would have improved my experience. And it actually probably would have improved the gunplay, or the feel of the gunplay. But yeah, look, the game's stunning. I think everyone can agree on that.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
my kind of big thing visually was that I was not worried, but I was curious to see how they tackle this. Is in part one was Boston, a very built up city. We're going to Seattle, another very built up city. I was like, how are you gonna kind of distinguish those as separate environments?
You're gonna travel to San Diego.
But it felt it looked more grimy and wet and miserable and overgrown, and it really did show that this has been going on for years and years. It go on.
That's something I actually completely missed when I was typing up my stuff, is that we saw that the planet taking back the cities. Yeah. So the overgrown, it almost turned cities, because it's 4 years or 5 years since the events of the first game. It might be a little bit longer. I think it's 4 to 6 years. But you've seen the world is taken back. The cities that were built up, it's more green. It's almost forest-like again. I actually completely forgot to even come up with that. It was, and that kind of just
amplified the kind of post-apocalyptic feel. It's that like no one's in charge, there's no control. It's just it's not a city anymore. It's all part of the
and it's what would happen. Like if I don't like weed the front garden every couple of months, it looks like shit. My front garden looks great, by the way.
Yeah, I thought they done that really well in kind of making it its own.
And it played into the level design. It played into the gameplay.
Yeah, like that's one thing Naughty Dog do really well, is their environmental design and how they integrate the environment into the story. And like The Last of Us, what I really like about The Last of Us in terms of its environment is that interpretation of post-apocalyptic America or the world, because when you look at things like The Walking Dead and so on, you tend to see like human outposts and just forests, but you don't see like huge areas, like huge cities that you recognize as San Diego, San Francisco, LA, and you kind of go like, Jesus, is that what would happen? Like if this was,
and it is what would happen.
And
look at,
they just
the perfect example to it is Chernobyl. Like real life Chernobyl, by the way, not video game Chernobyl or a Sky Atlantic HBO Chernobyl. Like the actual location is that wildlife is taking it back.
Yeah, and I think they did a really good job of that. I think being able to manage that real life scenario in a post-apocalyptic thing that hasn't really happened. Okay, Chernobyl is the right one, and it's a good point. But they're obviously drawing inspiration from what has happened and bringing that into a scenario that hopefully will never happen. And it looks, it's good,
I'm just waiting for them to say that The Last of Us is a prequel to Horizon.
No, you need to complete Horizon, and then you'll know what the prequel to Horizon is.
I'm only joking.
I know. No, but I was only thinking about it today, and I was just looking it up now again. I was like, what was the story with the infection in The Last of Us? I'm like, do you know what? If they had released that game, like The Last of Us 1 this year, it'd be a little on the nose. I don't think anyone would really want to play a game like that.
It's similar to The Division.
Infection.
Similar to The Division, the money flu.
Yeah. So, it's just interesting how things come at certain times, and you're like, "Oh, this is great," and then now you're like, "No,
shit, it's getting too real.
It's too close to the truth."
Are you an Ellie or an Abby? Take this quiz to find out.
Kojima's on Summer Game Fest talking about 9/11 again.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually have to add that to my news. I remembered. Thanks for reminding yourself, Kev. Moving just back to The Last of Us Part 2. So it's something that I love, is the increased use of lighting in gaming, and to not only create beautiful environments, like of ray tracing in Control or in Cyberpunk or stuff like that. And The Last of Us, by the way, the lighting is fantastic, but using light to deepen the atmosphere is something that games haven't always been able to do because the technology probably wasn't there just yet. But Naughty Dog do it so well in certain sequences in The Last of Us Part 2. And one that I think about quite a lot, even though I have a somewhere in the middle review of the game myself, a scene that stands out to me all the time is the scene where Ellie kills Nora in the hospital. Full spoilers, by the way. And it's where that you've got that red light, that dark. It's a dark hallway.
Oh yeah.
She's trapped at the door, and the red light is flashing on and off, and it's almost highlighting Ellie's descent into that revenge-fueled rage. It's the moment where she's kind of lost it a little bit here, and it's just that red flashing light, and the alarms going off. It's just like, despite what I think about a lot of the game, that one scene it's one of my favorites in recent gaming. It's just done so well. Yeah, agreed. We agree on something.
It's not something that I look for, but I love when it comes together. Like
it stands out to me. It reminds me of like Blade Runner 2049, where
I hate that film.
I love that film. It's no spoilers, don't worry.
It's a shit film, Stephen. Don't watch it.
I won't go into story stuff, but he goes to a place, and it's because of just the pollution, blah 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 blah. But it's it's just orange, the whole, and it reminded me of that. It's just Oh, by the way, go watch Blade Runner 2049.
I'm gonna get an OLED and then I'm gonna watch both Blade Runners.
Yeah, I love Blade Runner. I love both of them. But yeah, just that scene in Blade Runner where it's just the orange hue. I'm being as vague as possible here, Stephen. Don't worry. It's just this use of lighting just to create atmosphere. And another thing, obviously, that is used to create atmosphere is audio design. And it's another high point of both of the games, for me anyway. In that, like, it's used to build atmosphere during those sneaking sequences. And then in combat zones, you've got that high intensity music pumping in, the kill sounds when you gut something, it makes that kind of gurgling sound, or the thud. The audio is great in general terms. But you've also got that the use of Joel teaching Ellie to play guitar. It creates that really touching moment that video games haven't always had. That it was usually reserved for movies. That there was those touching father-daughter, pseudo-father, pseudo-daughter moments. And then Ellie obviously plays the same song later in the game. It's Pearl Jam, I think. Pearl Jam's Future Days. And yeah, it's really well done. It's really well done.
I think as well, actually, that I saw someone played was it Nothing Else Matters with.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
To be able to do that in a game, that's props to them for that, because that's cool.
That is actually, I actually completely forgot about that, Stephen. Thanks for reminding me. So when you're in the movie theater and you're playing the guitar, there's a couple of points in the game where you're playing guitar, but they are real chords that are programmed into the game, so you can play any song you want in the world within the video game. So like, just videos of people playing Nothing Else Matters. I've seen loads of different ones. That's the only one I can remember. Was it Nothing Else Matters, or was it one? I can't remember.
It was Nothing Else Matters. Yeah.
It's brilliant. I think I've seen Fear of the Dark as well by Maiden.
Oh really?
Yeah, I think I've seen that. But yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Right. Here's where we all start arguing and disagreeing. Because we're moving on to the very divisive part of The Last of Us. Part 2, by the way, not the first one, the second one. And that's the story. The first part, I think, is okay. We'll talk about the structure, how they structured the story in this game. And then we'll get on to the actual narrative itself of the events that happened in the game and the decisions the characters made. So I think the structure, despite my personal issues, by the way, with the narrative and the overall game length. I did really like how they structured the game, in that you play about 40% as Ellie, and then you play about 40% as the villain that you think is the villain, Abby, and then the last 20% you play it as Ellie again, as it all kind of wraps up. And my own feelings are split quite well across those three different parts. The first part, it was okay, it was fine. The part in the middle as Abby was the only real part where I went, I'm enjoying this game now. And then that last 20%, I was just like, can this just be over? Please, can this just be over?
Put 10 hours off the story and it's perfect.
In length, yes.
In length, yeah.
Yeah.
Bring that 40% down to 20, 20, 20, and it's perfect.
Or the way I would have preferred is that you get 60% as Ellie, and then you get a new game, and you play, or you get a previous game where you play as Abby for one game. Now, look, then you're saying, oh, but you'd rather pay 140 quid for one that...
If a story is told in a way that is exciting and, like, I prefer Abby's part. Because
100%. I 100% agree.
Yeah. Like, it was very new, it was very fresh, it was a whole new faction. World. You got these whole new group of characters. You were discovering the relationships between them and all the fucking shit going on with your one being pregnant and then Owen and things relationship. That was great. Seeing that and playing it out because it was new and it wasn't samey. And especially where you do it as well, and like the whole Owen fucking off to the aquarium and all that shit. I really liked Abby's parts, and as it grew, when you understand motivation wise and why she done what she done, and you start to kind of empathize a lot more. Like, to me, that was the best part of the storytelling, was that from someone you hated a couple of hours ago, they just built that character up so much that to me they turned into the not the hero, but the better half of the story.
It's something we chatted about a couple of weeks ago. I think, I don't know if we were playing a game or if we were just pre or post podcast, but I think The Last of Us 2 isn't quite, Last of Us Part 2 isn't quite a character study, but it's more a study of characters and how we perceive characters, in that neither Ellie nor Abby is the hero or the villain of this story. They both did things that were very wrong, like they murdered people, but both of them did things that you can go, I understand why they did it.
It was justifiable.
And I can rationalize why they did that. I don't agree with them doing it, but I get it. And that first 40% of the game, you are thinking, I fucking hate this bitch, I want to fucking kill this bitch. And then you start playing as her and you go, oh, I get it. But do I want to kill that bitch? And then it's like, neither of them are the villain of this story. Or they're both the villain of this story, whichever way you want to look at it. But
I think the more it plays out, Abby takes over as the good side, and Ellie's decision making in the last 20% of the game just made me want to fucking turn it off, because she doesn't know when to stop. And I think that kind of fed into the villainizing of her a lot more. I know, well, we'll get to it when we talk about the end, but yeah. Stephen?
I'm, in terms of the structure, like, I was thinking about this the other day, and I kind of agree with what Kev was saying, in that I think a good way to have probably better structured this game would be play 100% of the game as Ellie. Go to a new game plus, you unlock like Route B where you play as Abby and you experience her story. But then
you mean like Resident Evil 2, yeah?
Yeah, but then that you actually have a third option where you go back and play as Ellie. And in the interactions that you have with Abby, you actually have a choice. So because, as they were saying in the game, where they said, look, we want you to see what revenge can do to people and how that can taint them. It's like, well, why not give the player a choice? So when you play as Ellie, now that you as the player have agency and you know what Abby has gone through, that actually when you have those engagements, you don't say like, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to do this. Like, you have the option to not do that thing and see how that plays out, and see that there's a new story there where you can forgive people. There's a path forward. And
Naughty Dog,
how-
hire this man. That's brilliant.
Doesn't-
I never even thought of
I think-
that. That is brilliant.
But I think that makes more sense because you
Yeah,
get both sides of the
brilliant.
story. So you get the story where you're like, that bitch fucking should have died. And you play as her and you're like, no, I don't want to play as Abby. Why am I playing as her? And then by the end, you're like, holy shit, I wish I knew Abby's story. And it's like, hey, you can play this again. And as the player, you have hindsight and you can decide how the story goes. You can do the same thing again, knowing that Ellie is going to make the bad decisions and ruin her life. Or you can go back and say, no, actually, I forgive you for what you did. I would have done the same. I could have done the same. And in a past life, you did do the same.
It's
So
The
that
Last
would
of
have
Us
been-
Part 2, developed by BioWare. That's what you've just described. And it
Last
would
of
have
Us
been-
Part 2, Director's Cut.
Yeah.
That's quite. I think that's quite brilliant, personally.
I think just for the type of game that they were trying to achieve,
Yeah.
I think that's probably the right way to have gone, because you experience both narratives and then the option to experience the part where, well, you can still be a cunt if you want, or you have the option to empathize with this person who you originally saw as a villain, and you can go, no, I see your side of the story.
Yeah. I do think that. So I went completely spoiler free through this game. I didn't know about anything from this game. I don't know how I managed it, because I only
I don't know how you
I
did
only
that.
completed it about 4 months ago. I finally plucked up the courage to get through it. But I did think that playing as the person you've hated for 15 to 20 hours of the game was a masterstroke move by them. I love what you just suggested, Stephen. I don't think that's in Naughty Dog's playbook, though. That is more a BioWare or a CD Projekt Red kind of move. Or Bethesda, by the way. But I do think it was a masterstroke by Naughty Dog in the way they did it. Because, as Dill was saying, it expanded that universe and gave us more understanding of of other characters, or the way other people are living in it. And that's what I would like. I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but that's what I would like to see from a potential future Last of Us game, is that it's completely moved away from these characters in a different country or on the opposite side of the of the country, to expand that world more, to see how's everyone else because it is a very small story we're been told here. We're only been told a story of Ellie and Joel's group, Abby's group, and then Lev's group. So we're only seeing it from 3 very small perspectives, by the way. It's only between Seattle and San Diego, so it's not that far. But yeah, just to go back, it was brilliant making us play as Abby, because she was a likable and relatable character. Where
And I think
the other
I
person
hated the
wasn't.
first hour or two as Abby, because you're like, why the fuck am I playing as this bitch? What the fuck am I doing here? I just want to jump off the cliff and then
Just end the story.
but it was because you're coming in fresh off the Ellie kind of side. It was just after she leaves Jackson. Was that the transition?
It was when they clash in the movie theater.
Was it that late?
It
Okay.
was quite late.
Okay.
So basically, you play, for anyone who hasn't played or isn't sure, that 40% you play it up to a point where Ellie has gone and killed a couple of Abby's friends. She's come back to her HQ base, which is the movie theater. Joel's brother has arrived. Tommy, Jesse is there, who's the father of Dina,
Dina's
who is.
pregnant.
I swear to God, this game was written by the writers of fucking Riverdale. But Dina is Ellie's girlfriend, who's pregnant with Jesse's kid. But Abby then comes seeking revenge for the 2 friends that Ellie has just killed, because she found the map, because Ellie dropped the map. But that's where you swap over. It literally, Abby shoots Tommy in the head, doesn't kill him, by the way.
Yes.
And then it goes dun dun dun, da, 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 and you start playing as Abby for the next 10-15 hours. and then and then it ends up Abby's story leads you through what was happening when Ellie was doing her thing. It tells you what Abby was doing over those same days, and then it all comes to a head in a boss fight where you're fighting Ellie as Abby in the theater. That ends, and then it skips forward by about 6 months or 9 months, something like that. So yeah, just to come in there and just give the breakdown of what way it's scripted.
Yeah,
But-
like it is a divide because like my whole thing, and I keep reiterating it because it's all I keep saying in my head, was that if it was shorter, it would be amazing. Like, to me, the longer it is doesn't mean the better it is.
Not
Like
for
Steven
this kind of
said,
game.
if it was broken up in a way that if you had a game full of Ellie and then we got an expansion as Abby, or if you played as Abby just to break up the whole Ellie environment and Ellie setting in Jackson or whatever, and then revisit that later on, it would have been fantastic. But I think trying to put them all together at that length, trying to tell such a big story and introduce the scars into it, and then the rattlers at the end, there was a lot going on.
Yeah, there was a lot.
You know,
I forgot about the rattlers. But yeah, it's like what I did like how the game was structured and all of that. It's the actual story of the game is where my issues really begin. I didn't like this story. There was very little of this story that I actually did like. I think to really highlight my issues, I have to go back to the original, to The Last of Us again, and it's that, to me, The Last of Us 1, I could be completely wrong here, and Neil Druckmann is gonna strike me down for saying this, but The Last of Us 1 felt to me like, we have a story to tell. Let's make a video game to tell that story. Whereas, because of the success of the first game, they were thinking, we have to make a second game. Let's make a story so we can make that game. So it was almost like writing a song backwards. And it, to me, the writing was not nearly as good as the first game. It felt more Netflix teen drama than Naughty Dog epic. It was like Game of Thrones 1 to 7 and Game of Thrones 8.
nah, it wasn't that much of a contrast. I enjoyed the story. It was just they tried to flesh out too many things that didn't need to be there at all, like the pregnancy, and on both sides.
I agree. Yeah, that
didn't need to be involved. But if they went off on too many tangents instead of just sticking to the main, story.
Like, again, going back to the first one, like, the story of the first game is a man who's grieving the loss of his daughter and being unable to come to terms with that because it was tragic, and that was amazing by Naughty Dog, by the way. It was like, this girl is not on the cover of, oh, she's dead. And it's Joel trying to come to terms, not even trying, he's just accepted it at this stage. Then he's thrust into this job to shepherd a young girl of similar age across the country, not knowing why to begin with, by the way. And it's like, and then for a lot of it, they're unaccepting of each other. It's kind of this unwillingness to get along until shit starts happening, and then they kind of find common ground. But what defined the first game was that Joel makes a lot of decisions in that game that are morally questionable, and they can be debated until, I don't know, the cows come home or the third game comes out. But Joel did a lot of things that were wrong, and even now, I think Joel was wrong to do a lot of what he did, especially at the end with killing Abby's dad to save Ellie. But given the same choice, putting me in that position, I don't know if I could do differently. And I think that's what made this so brilliant. It was so expertly done. And that was missing from the second game. Like The Last of Us Part 2, like, it's a generic revenge plot because of a revenge plot that leads to another revenge plot and then ends up with another revenge plot that ultimately doesn't happen and doesn't lead to anything, and then they just go their separate ways anyway. So it was kind of like, okay.
I think that's half of the draw of the first Last of Us was that you develop this relationship, or you witness a relationship between Joel and Ellie, and you can empathize with his decision by the end. Completely the wrong decision, whether you like it or not, wrong decision, completely morally reprehensible what he did, but you could empathize. You fully understood why he did it, and it did leave you questioning, like, if I was him, would I have done the same?
I don't think there's a
I
father
guarantee-
in the world would do
Yeah,
differently.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's, you could objectively look at it and go, it's wrong, it's morally reprehensible, it's socially irresponsible for the world they're living in. But would you have done differently? And as you said, not a father in the world would have done differently. But that perfectly sets up the revenge plot in part 2. Then you go, I can understand why Abby is hell bent on revenge. But that leads to a subsequent revenge plot, which then ultimately fizzles out. Not because Ellie goes, do you know what? I've grown up. I've learned that this just isn't working.
That's not Ellie.
Like, no, she makes all the wrong decisions. Her partner leaves her. Her child leaves her. She comes back to nothing, all because of these decisions. And I think that's what pissed people off. Is like, you've got this character who people would have put a lot of time and invested in from 2013, ultimately who made wrong decision after wrong decision for no clear reason to end up miserable, which was the right thing to happen because she made all these bad decisions. But ultimately, it leaves people with a sour taste, and they go, my favorite, character is now miserable and shit, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I think it is a good storytelling device, but ultimately it leaves such a sour taste in the players that they walk away going, nah, fuck this. It's a shit game.
It was the false
Shit
ending
story.
that I didn't like.
Yeah.
Like,
It was
we
open-ended.
see.
It wasn't even open-ended. It was.
No,
yeah.
not even. No, way before that. Like when you see Ellie and Dina in the house,
Oh,
and
yeah.
before Tommy visits to give her the
Oh,
map
yeah.
to
Yeah.
Abby, like that would have been a great culmination to it.
I could have lived with that.
But it went on.
I actually could
And
have
so
lived
did
with
Ellie.
that.
Yeah, that's. I thought that was a perfect ending.
Yeah.
And then any time after that, like there was a good couple of hours afterwards, because it goes straight back to Abby and
Or.
she's.
Sorry. I'll come back to it. Sorry, I just thought of something.
No, go on to this.
Or that last 20%, you play it as Tommy, and Tommy hunts down Abby in his revenge thing, and ultimately ends up getting killed because of
I had
his
3
revenge
games
thing.
out of this.
Yeah. Like, I still dislike where Joel was killed in the story at the beginning by Abby after 2 hours. I don't have a problem with Joel dying. It's where he died. I think the story could have been improved if Joel had been alive until the movie theater scene. So Tommy gets killed in that prologue. So they come and hunt down Joel and Tommy, and Abby ends up going, you know what, you're gonna feel the same pain I felt and you're gonna lose family. And she kills Tommy. And then Ellie sets out to hunt down Abby. Joel gets dragged along with Ellie because he has to keep her safe because she's more, for all purposes, his daughter. And that ultimately ends up getting Joel killed by Abby because they've gone to kill Abby. And then you have I think the later Ellie revenge stuff makes sense then.
I don't think Tommy getting killed would have propulsed Ellie to go on
Well, it would have propulsed
a vengeful
Joel
trek
to go
across
do
the
it.
country.
It would have sent Joel to do it.
I don't know. I liked when he died because it kind of kickstarted the revenge path, and
Yeah.
it set the foundation for why the rest of the story happened.
I think it had to happen at that early stage because otherwise, you're just not. You
It was
don't have a
motivation.
story.
Yeah.
Like you can't just have 15 to 20 hours of Abby hunting Joel, and then it happening halfway through the game.
I think we
Then
would have
the
got
revenge-
very bored very early on if it was like, I don't even care
Yeah.
about Tommy. Why am I fucking putting myself through this bullshit?
But then it raises the question: should they have made this game?
No, absolutely
Sorry,
not.
should they have made the game they made, or should they have done something completely new or different, and not done?
Should
the
this
revenge
story
model?
have been told? No. This story did not need to be told. It could have.
You could
it
say
should
that
have
about
just-
anything, though. I
No,
enjoyed
you can,
the
100%.
story, and
No, and that is a
like-
subjective opinion from both of you.
yeah,
But do I think they should continue developing in the world of The Last of Us? Yes.
Yes, 100%.
But did that story need to be told? No. Like, that story couldn't be told in other ways. Like, you know, you could have told a parallel story in a different part of the US or somewhere else where you talk about maybe you put something in where Joel is the leader of a new faction and that he's been killed. And you're like, oh shit, what the fuck's going on this side? And you go like, throw away, he's dead. You know, he's dead. Forget about it now.
I don't think I agree with you. Because people wanted more Joel and Ellie, and if they
Oh,
had
I
a
know,
and this goes against the point I make later. I'm gonna make it later on. People would not have accepted The Last of Us Part 2 if it wasn't about Joel and Ellie. There would have been, it wouldn't have been divisive. It would have been just uproar from everybody. So I think they did have to make a Joel and Ellie sequel. I don't think they had a choice.
No.
I think their hands were tied
Yeah.
on that.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, I think personally they didn't need to tell the story. Commercially, they probably had no other option.
Yeah, it's probably fair.
But Dale, you liked the story, so like, if
I
that
liked
story
it.
wasn't
It's
told,
fun,
though,
yeah.
but if that story wasn't told, do you feel like you're missing out on anything? Do you feel like that actually added to that universe for you,
Yes.
or were you
Yes.
okay?
I think it did.
From
I think
seeing
I agree
Abby's
with him saying that.
perspective and her compound, the stadium, all that kind of arc of this is happening in more than one place. This is countrywide. This is worldwide. I would have liked a game to explore that by itself before revisiting the Ellie and Joel part of it.
Oh yeah, no,
I agree.
I think your suggestion of a game where you play as Abby, and maybe it's like the early phase of Abby leading up to the discovery that she was the scientist's father, and ending it there would have been brilliant.
It would have
And
had the
then that
same
leads-
impact the way it did in the first one when Joel killed the dad.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm.
And that could have been a nice platform then to then do The Last of Us Part 2. So this could have been The Last of Us, whatever.
1.5 or something, yeah.
Yeah.
I like the story.
what
I don't
would-
like how it was told. That's the way. That's what I.
I'm the
took away
opposite.
from it.
I liked how they told it, but I don't like it. But that's it. Like that's
That's it's thing. It's subjective
It's
completely,
subjective.
and that's the whole thing of the game is like they're laughing as well because it's to provoke conversation. It's living on in these discussions in
Yeah.
the I like this part of it. I don't like this part of it. I'll do and blah blah blah.
well.
But
I'll
it's
finish it
funny
on my
because I
re-
think-
sorry, Steven.
No,
You
I was gonna
ruined my
say that
segue!
Fuck your segue. I think the part that is really divisive with people, or at least where people were vocal, wasn't the story or the killing of Joel was definitely one of the most vocal parts. But I think it was more the political leaning of certain narratives. That's where I saw a lot of hatred come in, and that for me on my Twitter. That's what overwhelmed the discussion rather than the actual critiques of the game. It was
Yeah.
that side of the story.
I don't like that because
No.
I think political issues or sexuality stuff or anything along that people generally don't like discussing, they absolutely have a place in video games. They 100%. If a developer has a story to tell and that furthers the story they're telling, absolutely. Like,
Mhm.
political issues absolutely have a place in video games. No issue with it from me. Like, and if you do have an issue with it, go fuck yourself. Basically.
But you know what? This is the thing. Like, if you look at games where like Grand Theft Auto and all that, this is kind of the ultimate. We'll just say it, and I know it's not technically correct, but it's the ultimate right wing love fiasco of like you can have as many guns as you want, you can do whatever the fuck you want, fuck all the people of color and all this shit. It's like you can do whatever you want, you can have whatever guns you want, you can walk in by and like no one calls that out to go, you know, this is kind of right wing territory here, we should probably call this out. But as soon as you bring in a transgender person or anyone who has some sort of homosexual tendency, you're like, oh no, we can't have politics in games. Like, fuck that shit. Like,
Absolutely.
I don't care if I play as a transgender person because I don't know anything about transgender people. Educate me. Give me more shit than that and I can go, holy fuck, is this what it's like to live that life? Like, that's insane.
Absolutely.
And if someone has that story to tell,
people need representation in popular media. There needs to be more representation so the people can actually go, oh, like they want the same things I want. We're all the same, really. So what's? I don't understand the whole. I don't want this in my games because I don't approve of it. Get fucked. Seriously.
You know what?
See
If you
why
don't
it's an
like
issue
it,
in the first
don't
place.
buy it.
It shouldn't be an issue. It shouldn't be an issue. It should. We need to get to a point as a society where we just go, oh, cool. That's the way it is. Move on.
Look, if you have an issue with who someone loves or anything like that, like you're not a decent human. It's as simple as that.
If there was vegans in the game,
You know what? I 100% support that opinion. Move on.
I'm only joking.
Fucking
I'm only
hell.
joking.
Right.
There wouldn't be as much forestation in the cities. That's all I'm saying.
That's true. That's true. Right.
It's true, yeah.
So moving on, just discuss the characters a bit. We've already kind of delved into them a lot.
We did. Yeah.
Talking about that, but I think just to sum it up, I think Ellie, in my opinion, is a very unlikable character in The Last of Us Part 2. She is, when you start it, she's the hero of the story. She doesn't finish it that way, but she is very unlikable. And the only time she does come across as likable is in those flashback sequences. I also didn't find the people that she surrounds herself with, so the likes of Dina, Jesse, they weren't likable characters either. They just weren't. Like, perhaps it was intentional to make you empathize more with Abby, but for me, it worsened my experience. Like, does everything have to be so fucking depressing all the time with these people? It just was a bit, ugh. Yeah. By the way, I couldn't remember the name of her friends. I had to go Google that when I was writing all this stuff up. That's how that's how little I cared for those characters. I was happy. I didn't care when Jesse got killed because he did nothing to further the story for me anyway. And
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed
Dina
when
was
he
just
turned
there.
up as well. You know, I think it's another subjective thing.
It was a Twilight love triangle. Except this time, it's not a vampire, it's an Ellie.
Yeah, I look, having not played the game, but only watched it, I agree. I
didn't relate to
particular,
any
I
of the
think-
characters.
I like
definitely
the
didn't
Those characters.
Look, the voice acting is
Yeah,
quality, and it always has been.
Yeah.
But the actual characters, the majority of them are just flat out unlikable. Like, I get it's post-apocalyptic and people are hardened and they changed and so on. But you know what?
They didn't
Most of
seem
them
like they
are
were
just-
hardened, they were just stroppy.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like angsty teenager
teenager.
drama, and just Ellie's decision making through the whole game is just so poor. Like,
Yeah, it is.
she's just so misguided. It's like BioWare, and they decided just hit the renegade choice every single time. Why not? And it's just it's so bad.
And like talking about Ellie's choices, like in a roundabout way is the whole game. I know you've got the playing as the two different characters, but is the game in a roundabout way all about actions and consequences? Like Joel kills the doctor to save Ellie, then gets killed by Abby. Ellie kills Abby's friends, so Abby kills Ellie's friend. And then, like, obviously Lev stops Abby, who was gonna kill Dina. At least someone in this fucking story has a bit of a brain in their head. And then Ellie goes out seeking more revenge and loses everything. So, like, yeah. I don't know.
No one went
Like,
to stop. That's the main theme.
Exactly, Dil. That is the perfect way to put it. Is there's a point in all of this where someone with half a brain goes.
It was
Come on,
Lev.
look.
Lev
You don't need to
said that.
react to everything.
Yeah.
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 It was Lev. It was when Abby was about to kill Dina. Because Ellie had just killed Owen and his pregnant girlfriend. And Dina was pregnant and Abby was about to red wedding her. And Lev went, Abby, no, stop. And someone saw a bit of sense. Now, obviously, what happened with Abby further down the line was she was captured and left to rot, basically. Just somewhere along all of this, someone had to just go, no, stop. This is not worth it.
Do you know the funny thing is, I would question Lev's intervention at that time. It's like she just murdered Owen and a pregnant woman, and now you're going, oh no, hold on,
But-
like maybe we shouldn't follow through with this. At that time, I think that's where I'd lose my humanity a little bit and go, do you know what? A little stabbing wouldn't hurt.
But no, I wouldn't have done it. I don't know why Abby didn't just get up and go, no, you're right. She shouldn't pay for this. She should. And kill Ellie on the spot. Ellie's dead. It's all over. Because Dina's not going to go hunting Abby. Let's be real for a second. Tommy might, but he's just been shot in the head. He's fucked. Like, I don't know. But yeah, just to touch back on Abby quickly, like, in contrast to Ellie, I think Abby is an excellent and relatable character. And she deserved a full title all to herself. And I think that's the one thing I'm kind of sad about, is that they can't do an Abby game. A, because the condition she ended up in towards the end of the game. And B, can you do an Abby game without including Ellie somehow? Like, you can't just go, we'll just forget about that and move on. She's over it. It's okay. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't
it
think there's a need
depends on what you
to
do.
revisit that though.
No, there's
Like,
not.
in ter-
There's not.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think it would have been interesting to explore, like, what she, like, Dil, you already said this, that explore her time with the Fireflies after her dad was killed by Joel, what happened there, and then explore, like, the WLF to a deeper extent, because they had the stadium, they had a setup there. Like, it would have been really cool to explore all of that, but unfortunately not.
I don't think they could do it again now with
No, they couldn't.
the backlash that it's received. I don't think they'll ever touch Abby again.
No.
Which is a shame, because she was the best character in that game.
And it's unfortunate that it probably would deter them from exploring someone like that again.
I don't think.
Yeah,
No, I don't think it will. Neil Druckmann doesn't give a fuck. He will make what he wants to make. And that's a compliment,
true,
by the way,
but-
to Neil Druckmann.
Yeah.
You make whatever you want to make, mate. I will buy it and complain about it.
A year later.
A year later. Yeah, I think like the last part probably to discuss is the ending and what we thought of the ending. I know how I felt about it. So
I love the ending environment, like going to the island.
yes.
It was new. I don't like going through the same shit over and over and over again. Like the whole middle chunks of both their stories was very samey and very repetitive and very just let me get from this point to this point. I don't want to traverse all the bullshit in the middle. Whereas this was new environment, new setting, new enemies completely, new patterns. Just it was nice. It was refreshing at that stage.
Yeah.
Very late stage in the game.
I was just happy because I knew it was the last mission. Because I got a
was-
trophy for getting all the collectibles. I knew I was near the end.
It was coming to a time where, because we had gotten the false ending with Ellie and Dina in the house, blah blah blah, that when we took over as Abby, going through the houses before she got taken up, I was kind of like, this could end at any moment, or this could go on for a couple of hours. So it was kind of like the anticipation. It was kind of like, right, I'm on the edge of my seat now again because something's gonna happen. I think that just was kind of reinvigorating to the story.
I think so after everything that happened, we've already got the Abby kills Joel, Ellie tracks Abby down, Abby tracks Ellie down, Ellie tracks Abby down. But like after all of that, Ellie has Abby at death's door, could finish her off with a finger on her forehead to hold her underwater, and just lets her go because she feels sorry for her, I guess. I don't know what it is.
It was the only redeeming factor of Ellie in that whole game. I'm sorry.
But it was like it made everything that came before it feel like pointless in a way. Like I spent 30 plus hours getting through the game. It's a slow paced game that made it mentally challenging playing that long a game for the type, and that payoff was not worth the journey for me anyway. I know a lot of other people love it, but for me, I didn't enjoy that payoff at the end. I enjoyed the fight. I enjoyed the fight between Ellie and Abby on the beach in the water, but the end where it's like, right, bye. See you next revenge mission. It was like it just didn't pay off for me personally.
I think as well you have to consider that Ellie has essentially thrown away her happy ending with Dina to go and get revenge, and to have that change of conscience when she's been so fixated for the 30 plus hours before that. Like when she has her opinion or what she's going to do, nothing will deter her. Yet she had this one chance to save herself and go, look, I can forget about Abby and have the life I want, or I can go get revenge and hope that brings me some relief. To then change your mind after you nearly kill her anyway, to go back and go, oh yeah, shit, I forgot I made that really bad decision. I'm on my own now. It's like, it's so unsatisfying. It's the right decision. It should have happened. I'd been pissed if they'd let it go back, and Dean is like, oh, you're back. I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
But it's in terms of a story to a character who people would have loved and invested in, it's such a shitty ending. Like, to have that change of mind so late, it's just not rewarding. That could have been the part where maybe in a playthrough C, you have that decision. It's like, do I chase her or do I say, Tommy, no, that's it. I forgot. I'm leaving that behind now. And look, it doesn't work. It's so it's so against what Ellie is at that end. It just shouldn't have happened.
Apparently, Abby was supposed to die. In the first iteration that they were doing, Abby was supposed to get killed by Ellie in the water, but then they felt that was unjust to Abby.
I think that's where they could have had the choices right at the end. A, kill her. B, don't kill her. C, I don't know, kill left.
Don't even go on the journey.
Yeah, don't go on the journey. And then, depending on what decision you make then, gives you a different end cutscene. But that's not in Naughty Dog's playbook. Their Naughty Dog say, here's the story. We're telling you this story, whether you like it or not. And there's no optional endings. This is your story. And look, that's what they do. So,
but just to like jump off of that, I think in your scenario where you're A, B, or C, I think the endings to A and B are the exact same. You've already made a decision to chase her, so regardless of if you save her or kill her, you go back and Dina's gone. And C only unlocks when you've played through Abby's side, and you can decide, no, I'm not going on that journey.
Yeah.
But it's not Naughty Dog's playbook, so we can wish all we want. It ain't going to happen.
Now, the one thing I will say,
I was going to say, I think if they had killed Abby, at least it would have been consistent with the character of Ellie. And when she goes back to the empty home, you kind of don't feel as hard done by, because you go, she made her decision, she got what she wanted, she knew she was coming back to have that last second change of mind and lose it all. you can feel hard done by the character. So I think they would have been justified in killing her in the sense that it would have serviced the character of Ellie more than it did to their ending now.
Yeah, like I feel like it was always a in internal monologue with Ellie. Like, is it the right decision? Am I throwing everything away for this? And by not going through with it in the end, it was kind of like she was rationalizing it the whole time after leaving Dina, to see, is it worth it for what I want? And the fact that she goes to actually free Abby as well, to take her down from the ramparts or whatever it is, and then goes to kill her. It's kind of like she still doesn't know what she wants. She still hasn't made her mind up. It's not a definitive, even though the whole story is supposed to be a definitive revenge path and tracking her down. She still doesn't know what she wants to do. It's like a dog chasing a car. It's like all it wants to do is chase the car, but it doesn't know what to do with it when it gets it. And especially the fact that earlier on, Abby lets Ellie go. Well, after she beats the shit out of her, she doesn't kill her. It's kind of like, yeah, it's. I liked it. I liked the way that she didn't kill her. They both went their separate ways, and Ellie was miserable because Dina left her. But it was the
she
whole.
probably went to
I
hunt
enjoyed
Dina.
the flashbacks as well. Like, it was the what would Joel do more so than anything. I think in the end that kind of forced it to humanize Abby and humanize the situation rather than just, like you said, Stephen, just she has it in her head, this is what she wants, and it's just pure reaction, you know. But that's like everything in the game, it's subjective. It's no right way to interpret it, no right way to take it in any way that you feel is good or bad or indifferent. It's, yeah, and that's to me what's good about it. Like, perfectly would have been happy if she had killed Abby, or if Abby had killed Ellie, or vice versa, and anything like, just I'm happy with the ending. Yeah,
I think the reason it ended the way it ended, stupid fly. I think the reason it ended the way it ended was the cycle of violence has to end somewhere. Because if Ellie kills Abby, Lev is gonna go probably hunt Ellie at some point. Or if Abby kills Ellie, Tommy's just gonna find the next person to send after Abby. So the cycle has to end somewhere. Potentially it could have been Ellie chokes out Abby, Lev picks up a gun and bang, back of the head, and they're both dead in the sand. But
especially in the fight itself, like,
anything could have happened.
I didn't want it to end because I knew there was gonna be one outcome, and it was very, this is what happens. I didn't want to kill either or at that stage, and I was like, where you.
And I think that means the game, what it tried to do, was successful for you.
Yeah.
And what
completely.
Naughty Dog tried to do with this game was successful for you and a lot of other people. So, I personally, they could have ended that anyway, and I still wouldn't have been happy with the previous 30 hours. So,
I think at one stage I stopped fighting, and I was like, okay, what happens if I die here? And I died, and it reset the thing over again.
I did that too.
But I was kind of like, will this steer in one direction? Is it a choice kind of thing? But
I did that. I was like, is there a hidden ending here that I'm gonna find? Yeah, I don't know.
But that's just great storytelling. Like, I feel like if it conveys that level of indecisiveness through the medium of the game, I think that was brilliant.
Be interesting to see if they go with that anywhere. And I think that probably brings us to our, like, can they just leave Ellie? Can they just, like, I think they can leave the character of Abby 100% because she fulfilled her purpose in the game. But can they just leave Ellie as a character? And I think that brings us to the final point of this: is future The Last of Us. Where does a future The Last of Us go, or what could a future The Last of Us Part 3, or just straight up Last of Us 2 or Last of Us 3, like, what does that entail for you guys?
I liked what Steven said earlier on, where if you play a whole different story in Last of Us 3 or whatever it is, completely different part of America or even the world, and you're hearing like a radio broadcast or fucking just notes that you come across, and it's kind of hinting at Ellie as leader of whatever faction, or just something just as a nod, and not so much cryptic as an Easter egg, but just a nice little kind of like, this person is this is where they are in their life. This is their
It's a
I
world
think that
building
would
thing.
work.
yeah.
I think that
Whether
would
it's
work.
kind of like she's does this girl who used to be with or used to thought to have the cure, she's living with her family, or she's still traveling trying to find peace or something, just to kind of say this is where she left off, but not so much that it leaves it open, but in terms of like, this is who she is now, like she's evolved into this next part of her story or her life.
Something even like a really clever device could be journaling, where you take up maybe 5 or 6 years after The Last of Us Part 2, or maybe it's a little bit later, and Ellie is on her own traveling America. And what you're doing is, as you travel to different encampments and stuff or outposts, you find journals that she's left behind detailing her journey. And
She does that
you're
though,
even,
yeah, because she
that's
keeps
what I
the
mean.
journal in the game, yeah.
So it's in keeping with the character, where you're kind of, maybe you're not following her story, but in parallel you're learning about her, and
She's
you've
helping
witnessed what goes on, and maybe that does tie in overall to the larger narrative towards that type of game. But I think they need to leave Ellie as a playable character alone,
Yeah,
and bring
I
her in
agree.
as a bigger source in the
I agree.
world of The Last of Us.
Yeah, because I think if anything, she at least seemed at peace when she got back to the house the final time. That she at least seemed at peace with her decision to let Abby live, until of course Tommy comes barging in, barking orders again. But I don't think they can involve Abby without Ellie somehow, because it just does. It'd be weird. But I also don't think they can include Ellie as a playable character, because that character's arc, I think, has seen as, I wouldn't say a satisfying end, but it has seen a solid end that is satisfying for a lot of people, of course. But it has seen a natural ending. Plus,
Yeah, there's
no one
nothing
likes
else
her anymore
to bring
anyway.
in.
I like the journal concept, because
Yeah, I
even
do.
if it's a direction where she's leaving you tips and stuff like that, or she's leaving you supplies, and that's her whole thing. She's traveling the country. She wants to help people. She wants the betterment of. She doesn't want to go down that same path that she did, and she realizes what she did was wrong, and
It's like
Yeah.
Ellie is still
she's
young.
doing her best to incorporate change into her life now.
Because she is still young. She's only what, like late teens in this game, early 20s at the absolute latest.
Yeah,
Like,
I
she
think it's
is young.
17,
There's a
18.
lot of there's a lot there that they could go into somehow.
We don't need
I know.
another Ripley situation.
No. But there's also
Let
it's just the
Sigourney
whole
rest.
world. Like, they could explore a character in a completely different part of the world.
Yeah.
If
And
there's
it's-
any of the world left, by the way, everyone could be dead. Everywhere but Seattle is unoccupied. Everyone's dead. Or Jackson, wherever it is.
Yeah, like the material they have to work with, it's on level with The Walking Dead. Like, to me, it's very similar in terms of it's the same post-apocalyptic zombie. This is how life carries on after it. Like, it might be contained, but everything else is brought back to its foundation and its core, and you have to rebuild. So it's that kind of theme, or not theme. It's bigger than that. It's the world that's trying to tell or convey.
I will be interested
so
if they do
it is endless.
another game. Like, they obviously have the the HBO series coming out.
Yeah.
With Pedro, and what's it? Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey.
Yeah.
So like,
Oh, is that who that is?
yeah, from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I couldn't put my name on it. Yeah.
Everyone's second favorite moment. But it'd be interesting if they do another game for a long time, because they do have that series coming out, and they might just want to put everything into that universe and move on, maybe another Uncharted game or a whole new IP, which I'd be down for a new Naughty Dog IP. I think one thing that is potential, they could do a story with Lev, and Lev with the scars and what goes on there. That could potentially be interesting. The fucking internet would love that, by the way. But I think like Lev is an interesting character. There is like that whole scars thing is interesting, so that is potential. It could be a DLC as opposed to a full-fledged title, though.
I would like to see the scars, but I think Lev, at the age,
Yeah, it needs to
like we've seen that kind of part of why they ran away and why
true.
that separation happened. But yeah, like it's endless, and I think 3 is the magic number. I would be happy with a third just to complete the trilogy.
That's what I wish this was, a trilogy. I wish the first game was Joel and Ellie. The
Yeah.
second game was Abby's story. And at the end of that game, so you're hunting somebody, you don't know who it is, you're getting clues about it the whole time. And then the final scene of that game is you holding the golf club, standing over Joel. And it's like, press R2 to swing. It's like, I don't want to kill him! Don't make me... But you're kind of like, I get why I'm doing this. And then the third game is The Last of Us Part 2.
The hunt,
Where it's
yeah.
Ellie coming for Abby, Abby going back for Ellie, and then whatever it ends up. It just... I feel like 3 games of about 15 hours would have worked a lot better than what this was. It was just, for me...
100% agree.
It was just too long for me. I love a long game, but not this style of game. It was too mentally draining to get through it, which is why I completed it. I played 15 to 16 hours and then didn't play it for 6 months and then went back and finished it.
And that's hard to
It
come
was
back
9
into it
months.
then,
Oh, it
because
was...
you're jumping into such a not a small part, but such a middle section of the game where it's kind of like nothing's happening.
See, it worked out okay for me because I stopped about 2 missions into Abby's stuff. So it was kind of like a beginning, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
It was a missed opportunity, though. Definitely. To turn this into a trilogy.
I think they still will somehow. I don't know how they will, but we'll see what they do. I think The Last of Us IP is worth way too much to Sony to not pump out another game. There's just no way Sony don't want more. Now, maybe The Last of Us TV show will keep Sony happy, but like, regardless of my opinion or your opinion, either of your opinions, The Last of Us 2 was a very successful game. That's not debatable.
it was.
It is.
100%.
I think it's the most awarded game ever made. I could be wrong, but I think
so, yeah.
it's definitely up there. And there's no way like they're remaking the first one, like remaking, remastering, moving, whatever. But there's no way that they don't make another Last of Us game somewhere down the line. It's worth way too much money to them. But I do think it is very divisive, and the Metascore is like very clear on that. Like critic reviews, it's in the 90s, and then user reviews, it's around about 55 to 60. I had a look at it earlier, and obviously it got review bombed, so that's going to pull it down a little bit. But I think if we were to do a panel of ratings here, we'd have one very high one reasonably high one, and a 0.
I think it goes on
No,
what
I
Steven
wouldn't give it
says,
a
though.
0. I wouldn't give it a 0.
-10.
There we go.
But I think it is very what Steven said earlier on in terms of this is my favorite character. Why are you making her bad, or why are you making her
Yeah.
to be conceived this way? Like, I don't like this. Dislike. That's, to me, that's
Yes.
what it is.
But I think even
Yeah.
if you've played through it and you're a rational human being, by the end of it, you kind of go, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's
Did I-
game
did
and
I-
nobody's
is-
rational
yeah,
human being.
That's true. But it's like, did I enjoy the story? No. Because of a lot of what went on there. I didn't like the decisions, blah, blah, blah. But I still like... I like the story that they told. I didn't like the finer details of what happened in that story. If that makes any sense.
I love
I
the
like-
sly little like insult that you just had there. If you're a rational human being, you didn't really like the story, knowing full well that this guy over here liked the story.
Not that. No, I don't mean that way. I mean, I didn't like the story, but I liked the story. I liked the structure of it. I liked this whole, here's your hero. She's not really a good person. Here's the villain. She's not half as bad as you think. That is like, yes, all, yeah. I'm not getting philosophical.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And I think what they did with that was, even for someone who didn't enjoy the game or won't play it, it was a success.
Yeah. To
it was interesting.
Empathize to empathize with the villain is a very bold move in any game, because games are driven on this principle of like good and evil.
Are we the baddies?
But to make you play as the bad person and actually feel for them and see their side and go, shit, I rationalize with this person. I empathize with them. It's a very bold move, because as we can see, it's fucking divisive. People don't like it. It was a bold move. It was
People
a great
like
move.
things to be black and white for them. People don't like having to think about it and be put in front of it. Have a question put in front of them that doesn't have that 2 + 2 is 4.
As evident by the fact about Lev being transgendered.
Yeah. No, 100% is people like things to be as simple as possible for them to understand. When it's, well, what do you think about that? People don't like that question. And not everybody, obviously.
Yeah, it's this cognitive dissonance, and we learn a lot about it in education. It's like it's a tool for driving change in people, and it's creating that discomfort in your thought process where you think one thing, but you hit them with something that makes them uncomfortable. It completely changes or conflicts with the way they think. But if you can present it in a really rational and unconfrontational way, people can be accepting of it and go, yeah, I can actually see that point of view. A lot of people are resistant to it. A lot of people are open to it. This game tried to do it, and we got the same response. To some, it was a blunt force hammer. To some, it was a really nuanced technique to make you uncomfortable and go, hey, actually, Abby isn't that bad.
Yeah.
I do wonder how inspired by Breaking Bad The Last of Us Part 2 is.
I don't remember her saying, let's cook, Dina. So, I don't know.
Dina, you might be pregnant, but put that mask on. We're making meth.
Fucking hell.
Get in the van.
Right, so that was our deep dive discussion into The Last of Us Part 2. It wasn't as divisive as I thought it would be. We were quite agreeing on a lot of stuff. Some of the subjective things we had.
I think we're just the type of people that are happy that other people have different opinions.
And that's what, like,
and it's not just like you have to think the way I think. How do you not like what I like? It's just like that's
not a healthy standpoint to have. It's really not.
No, not at all.
Like, I'm looking and go, I did not enjoy this game because of X, Y, and Z. Dylan loved it because of X, Y, and Z. We are both right to feel the way that we feel about this game.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying to him, how the fuck did you... you're stupid for enjoying that.
Yeah.
And he's not saying to me, you didn't enjoy it? Well, you stupid or something? So,
imagine.
And I'm sitting here going...
Different people like different things. Like, different people like different things. I like Slipknot. Dylan doesn't like Slipknot. I like curry. Dylan doesn't like curry. I don't know enough about Stephen to say these things, by the way. I like Liverpool. You like Man United. That's rational.
I got a curry watching Slipknot once. What do you mean?
Anyway,
I hated both of them.
Do we want to put a score on the game? Because I know Dylan likes his scores. Do we want to put a score on it? Or what I would recommend?
A score with a hyphen.
A hyphen.
Or sorry, no, a score with a fucking
asterisk.
Star. Yeah, asterisk. Yeah.
And a recommendation.
Yeah.
I'd give it an 8.
Well, you're gonna make my score look really high. I would actually give it, like, despite my own personal feelings on it, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Like, I didn't enjoy it, but I can see why a lot of people did. I like what they tried to do, but I don't think it's a 10 out of 10. I think the first one as well, because of the weaker gameplay, it's not a 10 out of 10 when you include the whole package. But what it tries to deliver in the first one, it's 10 out of 10 on that. The second one I think has a much weaker story, so I think around a 7 or an 8 is more reasonable. And I'll come back to the recommendation in a second.
I
I-
can just
I don't-
easily look past things.
And
And that's not
likewise,
in terms
likewise.
of I'm just ignoring it. That's just in terms of I've accepted it, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's sorry,
And-
go on ahead, Stephen.
And that's the same with me, though. I can look at something and even if I don't enjoy it, just go, I didn't enjoy it. Move on to the next thing. I'm not going to get offended because I didn't enjoy something. Because they didn't make that game for someone who's not going to enjoy it. They made it because A, they want to make the game. They love making games. And they have a fan base who enjoys what they do.
Oh.
And that's what and that's fine. I'm not going to get offended just because I didn't necessarily enjoy it, because that's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous to get offended because something isn't for you. It's yeah. Sorry, Stephen. What's your rating?
I'm not going to rate it because I don't think it's fair as someone who hasn't played a game to rate it.
This
And
guy, man. This guy.
like, I have such a strong dislike of the first one, not because of the story, just because the gameplay is so terrible. And it's not fair for me to bring that judgment into part 2. Do I think, if I was to give I'll start with the recommendations. So, do I think if you enjoyed the first one, you should play the second one? Yes. Do I think everyone will enjoy it? No. So, if you're someone who enjoyed the gameplay and loved the story, pick it up on sale. If you're someone who hates the gameplay and wants to enjoy the story, forget about it. And if you're someone who just enjoys games in general, pick it up whenever you want. Because it's probably a perfectly serviceable game. And that would be my recommendations from someone who hasn't played it.
Yeah, I agree with what you've said. If you love the first one, absolutely play this one. It's a continuation of the story. If you enjoy Naughty Dog games or the AAA games Sony make, pick the fucking game up because you will enjoy it for the most part, probably. If you hated the first one, yeah, obviously steer clear of it unless it's free for PS Plus. And if you're unsure and you own a PS5, there's this wonderful thing called the PS Plus Collection where you can play the first one free of charge and see if you like it. So yeah, I would like if you're in the PlayStation ecosystem, yeah, like play the game. I would recommend playing it because even if you don't enjoy it, it's still one of those must plays or must watch titles because of how big it is. So yeah.
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 Like, yeah, it depends. I feel, and this resonates a lot with me. It's how you feel at the time when you're playing a game. If you want to play this type of game, you're ready to play it. But if it's a chore, if it's a we have to get through this part and then I'm gonna stop and then I'm gonna play another hour, you have to have the desire to play it, the want to play it. It's not just it's just whatever you're in the mood for in terms of like if you're in the mood for a multiplayer game, if you're in the mood for just a BR, no brain anything for a couple of hours. But if you really want a really thought provoking, fleshed out story, 100%.
That's what The Last of Us Part 3 is going to be. It's going to be a BR.
You can
I mean, the
respawn
first one
5
did have
times.
multiplayer.
And it was very good.
Yeah.
It's that is supposed to be coming at some point, by the way. The multiplayer version.
It's just gonna be Ellie versus Ellie versus Abby, 1v1s.
Part 2.
Yeah.
Zombie Boogaloo.
Round 1
Zombie
fists.
Boogaloo.
Round 2 knives.
Yeah.
Gun game, yeah.
Gun game.
Yeah, gun game.
So that was our Last of Us Part 2 review. Shall we touch on the news quickly? We'll
Yeah.
just kind of fly through it semi-quickly.
Still
That's-
recording, right?
Yeah, because of the
Up 2 hours
thing.
ago.
It's still recording now because of the thing. It cut out my for a second. I'll just do it again. There it is. I will launch it into Discord for you guys so you can watch it. There goes my camera. There you go. So we are starting off with Bloober team has announced a strategic partnership with Konami Digital Entertainment. This is to make some sort of Silent Hill game. Straight up, it's to make some sort of Silent Hill game. And this is following on from all of the Blue Box stuff. So Konami are partnering with Bloober team. They are, I think they're in Europe somewhere. But yeah,
Yeah.
they make horror games. They made The Medium, as far as I'm aware. So yeah,
Yep.
they're making some sort of Silent Hill game.
People are pissed about this, by the way.
I know.
Like,
I think people are pissed
super
because
pissed.
of Bloober. They didn't like The Medium.
or Layers of Fear is their other game.
Yeah,
I think they're all shite. But
Yeah,
they're
so-
pissed.
people aren't happy because the game they want might not be amazing. People need to calm the fuck down. Speaking of partnerships, Housemarque,
Yeah.
makers of Steven's game Returnal, are officially part of the PlayStation Studios family. I'm excited to see what these guys do next.
Yeah.
About
same.
time they're fucking making some acquisitions and Xbox doesn't get everybody.
I think,
but it's not as big as the ones Xbox are making, but they're
Yeah.
they're
You say
valuable
that.
to PlayStation.
you say that because there was two more announced. Well, one announced and one accidentally announced. And
Yeah.
these are really smart ones. Like Housemarque is a really smart. They make AAA games. Returnal is supposed to be fantastic. But PlayStation Japan accidentally posted this instead of this. And Bluepoint, who made the Demon's Souls remake, are also apparently part of the PlayStation Studios family. It hasn't been officially announced yet, but if that is the case, it is quite likely that this is linked to a Metal Gear Solid project. That is the rumor.
I thought you would have said a Bloodborne or a Thing remake.
I mean, that'd be fantastic, and I'm not going to say no to that either. But no, apparently this is to do with a Metal Gear Solid remake of the first one that Bluepoint are apparently working on. Now, Dylan mentioned Bloodborne remake, and that's where the next one might come in. It was announced today that Sony have acquired PC port developer Nixxes Software. And straight in that headline, use them to bring Bloodborne to PC. This is probably a sign of where Bungie are going, where PlayStation are going, in that,
Yep.
yeah, they're going to start bringing a lot more
More
games
accessibility.
to PC. Like, this is 100%, there's nothing down there, and that's an ad. This is 100%. These guys are going to be getting a lot of PlayStation's projects that they've worked. They
This is their
reboot.
transition
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, they did the PC port for Tomb Raider Trilogy, Deus Ex Mankind, and last year's Avengers. So they have worked on AAA games to bring them to PC. So it's gonna be interesting to see what they use these guys to do.
Might get The Last of Us on PC finally.
Well, Uncharted 4 is reportedly the next one in the pipeline, so it is possible, very possible. Yeah, hopefully it's Horizon Forbidden West on day one. Not happening. This week, Microsoft announced Windows 11. I'm not going to jump too much into the details on this. It's pretty great for games. Xbox also put their stuff in, talking about HDR and this direct storage thing, which launches your game faster. You're going to be able to stream xCloud games through the app, through a browser. It's looking great, and it's a free upgrade. If you want to know more about Windows 11, go where to find it. You know where to find it.
Start bar is going to be centered. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Fuck's sake. I'm surprised that's not an option anyway. Right. On to... I'm not going to go into the TWAB this week, by the way. There's too much into TWAB. I forgot to link it. That's the real reason. I'm not going to get too much into that. I'm gonna start going on to free shit and cheap stuff. So Steam's Summer Game Fest is on until July 8th. Go find some nice deals in there. There's a hell of a lot on sale. If you have a look through it, you might find something good.
Is that Sekiro?
It is Sekiro. I saw that.
Much.
$29.99, which is quite expensive considering it came out 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I love how it's like top sellers. Apex Legends free to play. Like it's free to play. Why is it here? There's a couple of things are decently priced off though. There are some decent things. On to the bad. Xbox's Game Pass games for next month are kind of meh. Apparently this Proteus is okay, and Limbo is apparently a must play. Sorry?
Gang Beasts.
Gang Beasts. Yeah. And they also announced their games with gold, which aren't here, but they are laughable, as always. And then PlayStation Plus games for July is Plague Tale Innocence for PS5, PS4 gets Call of Duty Black Ops 3, and WWE 2K Battlegrounds. These aren't for me. Plague Tale Innocence is apparently a must-play. It's very highly rated, but I'm not interested in it. If you are, you get it for free with PlayStation Plus.
Is Plague Tale like what are those games called? Telltale? Would it be like that kind of storytelling?
Not quite, no.
Don't think so. No.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure what the Epic game is for this week. I never checked it.
It is the Spectrum Retreat.
Oh, okay. Is it 2 or 1?
1.
All right. Well, there you go. It's called the Spectrum Retweet, apparently.
Retreat.
Yeah, I can't find it. Retweet. Fucking hell, Kev. Apart from that, Vault of Glass Master Edition launches on Tuesday at 6 p.m. It's in the TWAB. We're not going to talk about the TWAB. The last thing I will touch on, though, was a Jeff Grubb came out this afternoon, as far as I'm aware, was this afternoon, and stated that Kojima and Microsoft have reached an agreement, that they've signed a letter of intent to develop a cloud-based game exclusively for Xbox platforms. So it's going to be interesting. That's been rumored for quite a while, but apparently they've officially signed something.
And we got a Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut coming out on August 20th. We get I don't know if it's 20 or 30 euro or dollars, but you get a whole new island expansion, adaptive triggers for PS5, more Legends content, new quest lines, new stories, 4K. It looks amazing.
That's
on
for
PS4,
PS4
so
and PS5, isn't it? Not PC.
Yeah. No, PS4, PS5.
PS4, PS5.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
you can just imagine what it's going to look like.
Yeah, I need to play that game. I might wait to play it now.
I'm excited for that.
It already got a PS5 upgrade, didn't it? So
yeah.
Could just play that.
Got on PS5. Yeah.
I have it installed
on PS5 and $19.99 on PS4.
You got to pay for extra frames.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. PS4 original to PS5 Director's Cut is $29. Yeah. So if you already own it on PS4.
Fair enough.
Controversial.
Okay.
I will not speak ill of Sucker Punch games.
But yeah, irregardless, the story of the base game is fucking
I need to play it.
So
I have it installed on the PlayStation. I need to play it.
I'm curious to see the size of the island, because the areas are quite big anyway on Tsushima. So if it's anything like that, just even one section, it's gonna be big. It's gonna be huge. Yeah, there's new content for the raid as well, whatever they have, and the multiplayer as well. So yeah,
I need to do that raid. I've seen and heard good things about that.
Mm-hmm.
I need to play it. Right, well, I think that's probably us for this week. I think we did all right in the end.
Yeah,
we didn't
we had a couple of little technical hitches with Streamlabs, but I hope that it didn't break. It did pause the recording a couple times, but it kept on. It caught itself up, so I'm hoping it just doesn't skip forward a couple minutes. We'll find out.
Nice.
So yeah, it was a good conversation, though, as you were saying.
Definitely.
From three
Like,
totally different viewpoints as well, which was
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love the first game despite the gameplay being weak because the story is so damn good. So I was personally disappointed with what it was, but I still played it. I don't regret my purchase. I have the collector's edition with the fancy statue. I don't regret the purchase.
Same.
It was
Nice.
delayed, which didn't help my fucking opinion, but whatever. But yeah, look, we're not always gonna like everything, so would I buy the third one if they made a third one? 100%.
Will I get the collector's edition? 100%.
It's Joel on the ground with a golf club embedded in his cranium.
And
Gnarly.
Abby shouting 4.
Fuck's sake.
I'd buy
That's
that.
That's the collector's edition for Last of Us 4. It's just Abby with a golf club. 4.
Maybe that's the next game. It's The Last of Us Golf Edition or something.
Golf. Speed golf.
Yeah, mini golf.
Yeah.
You don't use golf balls, you just use Joel heads.
Joel's head.
Right. Gonna wrap it up there anyway. It's getting late, so thank you for if you've got through this. It wasn't quite as long as the story of The Last of Us, but it was about 10% ish. 15%. No, less. 7%. I went the wrong direction with that time. So yeah. Thank you. All those links will be in the description below as always.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in.
And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Peace.